Well, hello there, I'm Emrys from cruisehive.com, and yes, it's an end of an era for one Carnival cruise ship, along with more cruise news right after this. Cruise Hive has you covered with the major headlines from the past week across the major cruise lines. We've got coverage in Carnival Cruise Line getting tough with chair hogs, Norwegian Cruise Line's newer ship making waves in the US, the world's first zero-energy cruise terminal by Royal Caribbean, Holland America Line ending its Alaska season, and stick around as it's a sad day for Carnival's oldest cruise ship. Lots to get through, so your cruise news update begins now. Alright, we start with Carnival Cruise Line, which has quietly updated its onboard FAQ to include the enforcement policy about reserving sun loungers. This move, which now implements a tagging system to prevent excessively saving seats, follows a recent trend by the cruise line of instituting new policies to curb unacceptable behaviour on its ships. Frequent cruisers are very familiar with seat-saving tactics, which often include using a towel, flip-flop, piece of fruit, or another item to reserve a chair by giving it the appearance of being in use, when in reality, the person who put the item on the chair may not return for hours to actually use it. Yes, we've all seen it, haven't we? Guests reserving sun loungers or deck chairs for long periods are often referred to as chair hogs. Reserving chairs can be a source of great frustration on a cruise, especially when deck space may be limited, particularly on a sea day. Now, Carnival Cruise Line is seeking to cut down on chair reservation incidents with a monitoring system and making steps to ensure guests are aware of the policy. A crew member will place a notification in the form of a sticker or some tape on the lounger of the current time so they can keep track of it. If the chair remains unoccupied for 40 minutes, the contents shall be removed so other guests can use it. Also, signage will be clearly posted in deck areas, and the announcement will be posted on the Seaside Theatre poolside LED screen at regular intervals. The policy is also noted on the Carnival Hub app, and cruise directors are beginning to make regular announcements over the ship's loudspeakers to remind guests of the policy. This is not a new policy for the cruise line, of course, but enforcement has been lacking in the past, with experienced guests reporting that many times no enforcement at all is visible and chairs will remain claimed for hours without consequences, despite crew members passing the chairs on a regular basis. So what do you think about the reinforcement of the so-called chair hog policy? Go ahead and post your view in the comments below. New York City got a taste of Norwegian Cruise Line's newest cruise ship in the past week. Yes, it was Norwegian Prima. The cruise ship sailed on her maiden US voyage on October 6, visiting Halifax, Nova Scotia, and returning to New York City on October 10th, completing the ship's first US sailing. Norwegian Prima departed on one more voyage from New York City on October 10th. She sailed on a 5-day cruise visiting Norfolk and Bermuda. She will return to New York next year to offer round-trip sailings to Bermuda starting March 28th in 2023, of course, through May 14th, 2023. Following her cruise to Bermuda, Norwegian Prima will sail south to Galveston, Texas. Along the way, the ship will call in Puerto Plata in the Dominican Republic and the islands of Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. After a second cruise from Galveston, Norwegian Prima will sail 2 cruises from Miami before a series of 15 cruises from Port Canaveral, Florida. 5 more ships in the Prima class are scheduled for release in the next 5 years. In 2023, Norwegian Viva will set sail for the first time. Another vessel will be released each year after that between 2024 and 2027. Now, just before we move on with details about an impressive new cruise terminal, the end of the Alaska season for one cruise line, and an end of an era for one Carnival cruise ship, do feel free to subscribe to the Cruise Hive YouTube channel and like this video to show your support for all things cruise. The new $125 million, 161,334 square foot Galveston terminal, which opens on November 9th, will significantly expand Royal Caribbean's presence in Galveston, no doubt. But what's even more impressive is that once opened, the cruise terminal in Galveston will be the first of its kind to generate 100% of the energy needed to run all systems through a massive array of solar panels measuring 30,000 square feet. Wow, very impressive indeed. While the terminal will be home of Allure of the Seas, the first time Galveston welcomes Royal Caribbean's signature Oasis class. Several other Royal Caribbean cruise ships will also use the cruise terminal, such as Adventure of the Seas and Radiance of the Seas. In all, the facility will be able to handle 630,000 Royal Caribbean cruise passengers annually. So the solar panels will provide over 100% of the energy needs of the building. The surplus will be sent to the local power grid. There will be bicycles for staff, providing alternative transportation to the city, and electric charging points for vehicles. The building has been built with materials that produce less carbon based on energy used and transportation. At the same time, these materials have been designed to minimize the heat island effect. Wow, what do you think of this impressive new terminal, which is opening very, very soon? Do let us know in the comments below. Holland America Line concluded its 75th season in Alaska on October 8th, as 2 of the line's cruise ships arrived in their home ports to debark their guests in Seattle and Vancouver. Out of the company's 11 cruise ships, 6 sailed on voyages in Alaska this past season, with the last 2 concluding their season. So Koningsdam made its last call to Ketchikan on October 7th and is already starting her winter season sailing the Mexican Riviera. Koningsdam was the first cruise ship to return to Canada this year, with a call at Victoria, British Columbia in Canada. The ship's call marked 905 days since a cruise ship visited the port, and a maiden call for the ship. Koningsdam sailed from Vancouver for the entirety of its Alaska season. Eurodam also concluded its Alaska season in Seattle on October 8th, after which she sailed south to Fort Lauderdale for a series of cruises around the Caribbean, Central and South America. As another season comes to a close, the cruise line is seeing an increased interest in Alaska cruises, a destination that many guests see as a bucket list destination and something entirely different than cruises in the Caribbean or Mediterranean. Holland America will return to Alaska in April next year, sailing a record 121 cruises on board 6 ships through September 2023. And these ships are Eurodam, New Amsterdam, Noordam, Westerdam, Volendam, and of course, Koningsdam. And finally, we come to a sad ending with Carnival Ecstasy reaching the end of service. After 31 years, the Fantasy Class Carnival cruise ship ends its final voyage with Passengers, a 5-night cruise that departed Mobile, Alabama on October 10th. The itinerary included a final call to Cozumel and then to Progreso, both in Mexico, before heading back home. While many are sad to see the smaller size cruise ship go, she did have a final hurrah, that's for sure. During the last day at sea, Carnival Cruise Line brand ambassador John Heald organized an auction where a considerable amount of money was collected to benefit St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, a long-time beneficiary of charitable events on board Carnival cruise ships. During her career, the cruise ship sailed on 2,300 cruises for Carnival, during which more than 5.5 million guests embarked and disembarked the ship. The Fantasy Class cruise ship has always been a hugely popular ship amongst Carnival Cruise Line guests. Carnival Ecstasy will make its way across the Atlantic Ocean and towards the Mediterranean in the coming days. She will be broken up as scrap metal in the shipbreaking yard in Turkey. However, before that happens, and once all guests have disembarked, the crew will start making preparations to strip the ship of anything valuable, such as consumables, towels, and valuable hardware. Only 2 of the original 8 Fantasy Class cruise ships remain. That's Carnival Elation, which is currently sailing out of Jacksonville in Florida, and Carnival Paradise, which is presently operating from Tampa. 5 Fantasy Class ships have already been scrapped. I can't believe it. Carnival Fantasy, obviously the original in the class. Carnival Sensation, which is really sad for me, as that was the very first ship I ever worked on. Carnival Fascination, Carnival Imagination, and of course, Carnival Inspiration. Do you have any memories then of these ships or the Carnival Ecstasy? I'd love to read your comments down below. Those were just a handful of the cruise stories from the past week. We've got all the coverage over on cruisehive.com, including another Caribbean cruise destination dropping all requirements, Carnival dropping its face mask mandate for crew members, an Expedition Cruise Line rolls out Starlink internet fleet-wide, construction begins on a new cruise port in Alaska, Grand Turk reopens for cruises after being damaged from Hurricane Fiona, Port Canaveral expected to be busy with new Artemis launch date, disembarkation port changed for Holland America cruise ship, and so much more all over on the website, of course. So that's it for this week's cruise news update. Thanks ever so much for taking the time to watch the video. If you did find it informative at all, do go ahead and subscribe to the Cruise Hive YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to hit that like button so YouTube knows you like all things cruise. I'm Memories from cruisehive.com. Thanks again everyone for your time, and I'll see you all soon.